Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Comedy Defect podcast. My name's Winter Phonander, I'm a comedian, and this is my show. So welcome to the show, guys. This is a monthly podcast. Used to be weekly, but I don't have the time or the energy reserves at the moment. Oh, talk about energy reserves. I went into hospital for about 3 days there because I thought, I had a bit of a cold. Turns out it was worse than that. Yeah, and you know what, right? It wasn't too bad. I'm not going to lie. It was okay. The break was good. I thought that my brain could push my body as hard as my brain wanted to go, but that wasn't the case. So body kind of let me down a little bit. But I'm feeling a little bit better now, and I went back in for a checkup, and they made me blow into this device. It was a medical device, and it read on the thing that this measurement was 10 or 12 times more than it should be, and that I'll be like that for the next maybe 2 or 3 months. And if it doesn't change, they'll have to put me on different drugs, which is awesome. So more drugs. But I've been doing gigs, and I've been comparing and emceeing a lot, and I just felt sometimes I just don't have the tank that I usually have. I mean, I'll hit the marks, but not as quickly as I wish. So that's how it is sometimes. You just can't will yourself into being healthy. You got to accept it. Just, take a chill pill or whatever drugs that you're prescribed. I've been applying for fringes. I'm doing the Leicester fringe this year coming. I'm doing the Brighton. I'm also doing the Edinburgh fringe, but I'll be doing as many around the places I can get my hands on, because I'm going to be doing a show and it's going to be called In Bits. And that's what it's going to be. I'm going to really enjoy doing that. And the dates will be on my website, which Danny Clives is fixing. He's got a month to finish that website, bless him. I love him, but it's taking a long time. All those dates will be on my website for you to check out. But this episode is a very long one, but it's a very good one. I really enjoyed this moment I had with Andy Storey. It's episode 55. We talk a lot about integrity, the right to be on stage, fame, myths about comedy, and how he creates up strategies for coping with the mental torment that comedy can create. They're my words, not his. He's got way better strategies for dealing with that. The way he looks at his material is, it's not material or an act, but he'll tell you about that in a bit. Andy's story for this episode 55. Now, if you like this podcast, you can follow us on Twitter. We're there at The Comedy Defect. You can follow me at Winter Phonander. I'm also taking as many jokes as I can out of that Guinness Encyclopedia. I've kind of ground to a halt, but I've gotten to page 100, so I'm doing all right. Check those jokes out. They're on Twitter at Guinness Jokes. Now, if you like this podcast and you want to donate, go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast. You can donate as little as $1 or as much as you feel this podcast is worth. And those of you that do donate, thank you, because you're paying for the people that can. Those of you that don't donate, that's okay. Look, just leave us a nice, honest review on iTunes or Podbean, because it all helps, guys. It tells people where we are and what we're doing. This is a great episode with a very funny and a bit of a sage, a bit of a wizard of comedy. I really enjoyed the moment with Andy, so I hope you enjoy it too. It's quite a long one, but enjoy. Episode 55, Andy's story. Andy Storey, welcome to the Comedy Defect. How are you doing, man?
I'm really well, thanks. It's great. What a lovely sunny day. I don't think I've been to Hemel Hempstead before.
You're missing out. You're missing out.
But you would think I'd been there to a gig, but I don't know if there's any gigs.
There's a few gigs around here, yeah.
Is there a Mirth one?
There is not a Mirth gig, actually, which is strange.
Usually when I go meet somebody at a train station, I usually have gigged there,
Yeah.
I'm not good at geography and travel, so I don't really know where I am. I mean, I was at the Stand and Calling yesterday, but if you asked me where that was... Mm-hmm. My lady friend took me in the car, so I've no idea where the gig is, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I do recognise, I'm good at recognising train stations and things, so... I've certainly never been here, but it looked really, really nice in the front.
But do you drive yourself?
No, I don't. I've never driven. I think we were talking about this earlier, actually, in the kitchen, weren't we, about fears and neurosis. I'm not neurotic as a person, but I don't think I'd be a very good driver, I think I'd be... I just think I'd fall asleep. Yeah, I just don't think I could concentrate. No. I don't think I'd have road rage. But I think I'd just be absent-minded. I tell you what it might be is my interestingly, my father was long before I even knew, was alive, was a taxi driver, which I never knew that until I was a little bit older. But strangely, as far as I know, in my life, we never had a car, But we never had a car in the family, so I've never been used to being in a car. So on all our holidays and things, we either walked or got the train, do you know what I mean? My granddad had a car, but in my childhood, I've never been in a car, really. Do you see what I mean? I never spent my life in a car.
Wow.
So I suppose maybe it comes from that, and not being used to the, seeing the inside of a car. But I certainly don't like the smell of a summer car, the plastic. that plastic dashboard smell.
I know that, but also back in the days, like everyone used to smoke in the cars all the time as well, and there was that like sort of that smoke permeated everything, and you just smell that. It would make everything smell of that.
I don't think I would ever learn to drive. I don't think. I think I'm too old now for driving lessons. You know what I mean?
My nan tried to learn to drive for a bit. She was doing some lessons, and she nearly took out this other old lady who was crossing the road. And my nan was like, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry." And then my nan saw that she had a piece of knitting with her. She said, "Oh, that's an interesting cross stitch." And they started comparing cross stitches even after she just nearly killed her. You know,
something in common. Yeah. Well, they got two things in common: imminent death and cross stitch. Yeah.
Stitch in time, eh?
Stitch in time, yeah.
But so you said you're claustrophobic as well.
I would say I was claustrophobic. As I was saying before, in the kitchen, you know, I try not to define myself with those parameters, you know. So I would say, yes, certainly claustrophobic if you put me in a small box and locked it. I mean, I don't think anybody would be. Yeah. But I think in a theatre or in a cinema or something, I always sit on the aisle seat or try to book an aisle seat. And we went to this concert, which was Brian Setzer. Do you know him? He was a lead guitarist from the Stray Cats. Now it is a group called Rockabilly Riot. Now I like a bit of rockabilly slap bass in my music. So we went to see that at the Kentish Town O2 Forum. So I tell you who was there. Tim Vine was there as an audience member. So he must like his rock and roll music. I saw him in the queue. It was an awful rainy night. But anyway, we're inside. I don't know how many people you were getting there. Perhaps, at a guess, certainly 1,500, 2,000 maybe. I mean, but most of the people in the upper balcony, they're seated. But downstairs, we wanted to be quite close to the front. Get a good view, I like. So I did, when the audience started to come in and it almost started, I did feel sort of trapped in. But I was at the side. I got at the side where they got the barrier. And so I could pretend I was sick and go to the side. So, but I'm trying to conquer that really. I don't like the idea of that. I used to get claustrophobic very early on in a stand-up gig. If you, as you went on stage, if the venue had no exit apart from back through the audience, so there's no sides and the back you're sort of trapped in somewhere like Piccadilly Comedy downstairs, something like that, or even Piccadilly Comedy upstairs. Although it's a higher ceiling in there, it's a bigger room, so there's more air in there. But downstairs, certainly, sort of like a basement thing. Downstairs, the King's Head, although you can go out from the side. But those kind of gigs, if you're trapped. I once did a play years ago at the Fringe Theatre, small one. And I did a play called Box and Cox, the three-hander. And originally I think it was written by Gilbert and Sullivan, as a curtain raiser. So they would have a half an hour comedy, a farce. So they would have that on at the start before a longer production. And it got some songs in it. It's like the Tabard or the White Bears in a small theatre. And that had no exit, apart from the audience, so you couldn't get out, do you know what I mean? And in fact, in one performance, Dr. Legg, do you remember EastEnders? Dr. Legg, he was there watching with his wife. Why? Yeah, I got a bit of stage fright, actually. And I also did a play at the Etc. Theatre, Fringe play, that I'd written myself, called Bone Bag. And I got a bit of stage fright then as well, because I was sort of trapped. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even when a play starts, a comedian's a little bit different, because an audience can imagine a comedian leaving the stage. It might be something humorous. Whereas an actor, they imagine that they're going to stay on. Yeah. So if you you can feel trapped a bit. But I don't feel that anymore. I've got over that, you know. I think I've conquered most of that. Although I still would prefer an aisle seat in the theatre. Yeah. The cinema less so. In a cinema, there's more. It's a film, so you people get up in the middle of it and they will go out for a wee, don't they? Something, or a refill of Coke or something. Oh, they're so big, aren't they? But in the theatre, live action, Mark Rylance is on, and and I like to be near the front. Yeah. You don't really want to stand up, and you've got to go through. Excuse me, all the way to the end. Yeah. And that I think that's the fear, the social fear of when the lights go down. I'm fine for the first 10 minutes in the theatre, and then I start to feel sick. Yeah. And knowing that I've got to go, excuse me, and interrupt their show is absolutely horrifying, isn't it? I get the same thing on public transport when the doors close on a train, but I sit in the toilet area, right, and I'm totally relaxed. It's not real, it's a trick of the mind. Yeah, because if I'm near the toilet, I was on today, but it's lovely, it was empty today, so if it's empty, it's fine, isn't it? So it's obviously the inclusion of people and nothing to do with the trapped on a train, because when the train's empty, I feel relaxed. So the idea of being sick, I think, of vomiting in front of people is the fear. And I think that's a widespread fear, I think.
I think so.
I heard this interview with somebody, I don't think it was a comedian, they couldn't go in a supermarket because they were afraid of being sick and everyone seeing, you know. And that was the people seeing.
Yeah.
So they didn't like shopping in a big store because there's lots of people there, they panicked.
Yeah.
But I think, I'll tell you what it was on This Morning, you know, the programme.
Yeah.
Now I'm old enough to remember This Morning with Richard and Judy and also with Phil and Fern.
Oh, yeah.
So there's another incarnation there, and now it's the Irish chap, Eamon Holmes, and his wife. I can't think what her name is if you watch it. But there was a lady on there, you know, the man who was trying to solve the people's issues, and they said, well, you just have to go to the supermarket. And he was saying that, do you have any reference points when you've been to a supermarket and you haven't been sick? And she said, yes, every time I've never been sick. So why you... That's the same as me on public transport. I've never thrown up on public transport.
You went to art college, you said before.
I studied graphic design for 4 years, up to an HND level at Middlesbrough, Cleveland College of Art and Design. In fact, not far away from where Vic and Bob, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Mortimer lived in Middlesbrough,
right?
Where they're from, anyway. So the college was near there. And in fact, when I was at art college, I think they were in their heyday, I think, Vic and Bob. So I did that, and then I wasn't good at that, you know. I was good at the ideas, the creative ideas, but I wasn't good practically. I couldn't do it. I couldn't physically. Different to fine art, because you're expressing yourself in a different way. Graphic art, you've got to be quite precise, I think. And I remember the tutor saying to me, what you're doing, the ideas are great, but the precision of it it's not beautiful, you know. He said to me, tomorrow can you bring me in something which you think is beautiful, so I know what you think is beautiful. And you know what I took in cut out clippings of bodybuilders from magazines, which I think is one of the most beautiful things. And I don't think he quite understood. I don't think he could quite understand what was in my mind, you know. But I thought that was beautiful, you know, which I still do. That's my surprise thing, that I'm into that, you know. I love. And if you know Trev Takabi, you know Trev.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Now he loves bodybuilding. He goes to all the expos and stuff. And when he realised that I did it, it was like a shock. And then we were very excitedly talking about Dorian Yates and Sean Ray and Mr. Olympia and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
I've never seen these people live. Well, I've met Sean Ray and Dorian Yates on this film, but I've never seen Mr. Olympia.
Okay.
Again, well, that ties in because I'm afraid of flying, so I wouldn't go to America to see. We went to America to Graceland, but that was a couple of years ago.
Yourself and your missus, is that right?
Hillary, my lady friend, to Graceland. It was great, but I was absolutely terrified all the way there and all the way back for an 8 or 9 hour flight, you know, to New Orleans, and then another little flight. Yeah. But the little flight was worse because it was a tiny plane with about 6 seats in it. Right. It was awful. It was shaking through the air like a toy aeroplane. That was brilliant. Yeah, I was terrified, but we stayed in the Heartbreak Hotel for a couple of nights on Lonely Street. You know, it was all sort of laid on. You know,
cool. Was it Arnold Schwarzenegger that got you hooked into it, or was it like something before that?
You know, as a young man, I did watch Pumping Iron. You know, I watched it a couple of nights back on Netflix, and I know they did a remastered version of it. I think the Netflix one is the original one. Yeah, but I think there was a DVD which there was a new bits to it. I actually have a VHS of Pumping Iron, and when I went to a store once, they had it, and it was I think it's like a collector's item now. Cool. So I think I own a original VHS with in good order. So, you know, maybe it's only £100 or so, but you know, I've got that at home in the northeast. Yeah, I think bodybuilding. Same time I was at art college, I think. Yeah, I remember my parents coming to. I think it was the first time I'd lived away from home in Middlesbrough, and them coming to see what was a student accommodation, and on on the walls was cuttings of oiled men, you know, in trunks. I don't know what they were thinking, but I remember at that point starting, and I went to the gym, I think. So that, I don't know what I'd seen, but something had inspired me to, I suppose any young man.
Yeah.
And how old was I at art college? I wasn't that young, but I get lost off with the age when I went to things and what date it was, but I don't know, I was late teens or...
Yeah. I mean...
But everyone starts to lift weights and wants big arms, for a t-shirt. Do you know what I mean?
No, of course. It's like. I mean, I was the same. I mean, my hero was Arnie when I was younger.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I've got the quote up there from Arnold Schwarzenegger as well.
Okay,
you know, and so it's like all these kind of things, you know.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I met Dorian Yates,
right,
from Birmingham, England, of course. I met him at a seminar. This was before I lifted weights. I did martial arts before, from an 11-year-old till I was about 16, to quite a high level. Another thing that... So I was British champion, you know.
Wow.
In Taekwondo.
Wow.
I don't usually speak about that, but I think why not, you know?
Yeah.
Feel relaxed. So I did that, and that sort of led me to... I suppose that led me into the weights arena.
Of course.
So I went to this seminar, Dorian Yates, in the Mayfair Ballroom in Newcastle. So I'm from the northeast, from Durham, about 21 miles away from Newcastle. And that was extraordinary, but this is a guy who was at the time, I think he'd won a couple of Mr. Olympias or something, so it would have been 90, somewhere in the 90s, mid to late 90s, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Someone listening will correct me on the dates of that, if Trevor's here. I'm not a geek at anything, I'm not a nerd, you know, but anyway. But at the time he was 5'8", he was about, I mean, he must have been 265 pounds. The first half of the seminar was a nutrition thing. He had a tracksuit on. He looked like he had a stomach sticking out. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen a bodybuilder in real life. He looked like a powerlifter, if anything. Bum bag. In those days, you remember the bum bag on the front?
Yeah.
In Britain on the front?
Yeah.
And the second half, he oiled himself up and came out, and I'd never seen... I could not believe it. Yeah. This guy had to turn sideways almost to get through the door of the back. And he looked extraordinary. He had the six-pack was showing through. And he wasn't super lean, but he looked great.
Yeah.
And I queued up afterwards. I got a signed picture, but I just remembered that. I don't know where that is now. He signed it in a gold pen, you know. And I shook his hand. His forearm was bigger than my leg.
Yeah.
He was so big. And for a man, I think, I wasn't a boy, I was a grown man. For a man, I just think there's something great power in that, you know. And also coming from the northeast of England, it's quite a masculine sort of, I would say, macho sort of area of Britain, you know.
Yeah.
And many other places as well, but certainly the northeast. You know, I think that was really a powerful image, I think. And then I met Sean Ray at the same venue, if you know Sean Ray, American bodybuilder who never won Mr. Olympia, but he was second a few times to, who was he second to? I think Dorian, and maybe he was third or fourth, you know, when Flex Wheeler was around and all these kind of people. But I've never seen it. I've seen a live amateur bodybuilding contest. I think I went on my own to see it. It was a long time ago now. Yeah. But I'd like to take Hillary, my lady friend, to see a Mr. Olympia, or at least a professional one. But again, flying wouldn't be great. But I don't know what I like about it. I just think it looks great. And I like the ladies' one as well, the female one. I think looks great.
I think it's inspirational, really. Because it's like this amount of that effort that goes into just honing that every sinew, every muscle. It's just that sheer focus and determination, and it's all those techniques are transferable to everything else. You go, that's inspired me to do whatever I can to other things.
I've always been inspired by solo endeavour, you know. I remember being at pre-drama school. I did an A-level acting course, you know. When I came away from art, the drawing and graphic design, I thought, well, I want to be an actor. I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I wanted to be a comedian, really, but I said to somebody else in a sort of interview thing, I said, well, I think all of that was just putting off, just an excuse not to do it, do you know what I mean? So I was slowly inching towards, from art to acting, still inching towards comedy, and through that I was watching comedy, you know, at the same time. But so anything from sport, boxing I used to keep a boxing scrapbook when I was at Frank Bruno, the late Frank Bruno, Tyson. I think I'm old enough to catch the end of Frank Bruno and remember sort of Tyson coming in through there. And I kept a scrapbook, you know, with sort of middle to back end of Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn, that kind of thing. I mean, that great era in boxing. I caught two great eras, one in bodybuilding. So, what was it at the same time? Was it mid to late 90s? Eubank, Benn. Yeah. And I was telling to somebody, I did a podcast with Russell Hicks, and we were talking about boxing. Someone like, I listened to the Anthony Joshua fight. Was it Klitschko? One of those ones. Yeah. And there's something that transcends in that, which is beyond boxing. When I listen to it, there's something David and Goliath about that. Although not the characters, but there's something mythical. I don't know whether it's a male thing. I don't know whether anyone would feel the same thing. But there's something beyond human. There's something important about it. I felt emotional listening to it. Yeah. But beyond the boxing, something heroic and slaying of demons and warriors. And I don't know if that's intrinsically male or just human, but something Greek. There's something Athenian. There's something mystical about it. This beyond. As you're saying with the bodybuilding, something beyond the thing that it is. You know what I mean? Like the Rocky films, of course. It's not about boxing. You know? Yeah,
it's an old story where
it's an old story. Yeah,
the hero overcomes the whatever is adversity.
You're
of some
exactly
kind.
right. That is it.
Yeah.
It's an old tale, which is older than the tale. Yeah, there's something inside. You know. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And you stand upon and you're mountain victorious. You're like,
there's something powerful about that.
Absolutely.
And the Anthony Joshua fight was really. I thought he was not going to win it. Had a feeling that he would have a great go at it. And he's a great boxer. But I just didn't think with the history of Klitschko. Yeah. But of course, I don't know if it's not an excuse for anyone. But I don't know if age is a factor in that. As with the tennis, with Venus. And the new girl, I can't think of her name, but if age, they kept saying age was a factor, but that's taking away from the victory, I suppose, of the other person. Oh, Andy Murray had the bad hip. Is that taking away from his opponent there, who is rightly victorious? But it was a great fight, It's a shame that they don't show it on the television so we can all see it. I think that's a shame. I listened to the Manny Pacquiao fight on the radio, but there's something exciting about that. I listen to a lot of the Tyson fights on the radio. And that's because you can't see, and it's quite exciting, isn't it? Yeah. To wonder what's happening,
visualise
what they look like, and then you're straight on YouTube afterwards to see if anyone's filmed it off of the sky or whatever it is. But I'm looking forward, of course, to the. I'm not au fait with all the people, but the
Conor McGregor,
of course, McGregor,
Mayweather, that's it. That's going to be interesting.
That's exciting.
When is that anyway? Is that soon?
That's the end of August, I think.
Oh, right, okay, great.
So while we're are you in Edinburgh?
I'm in Edinburgh for the month, yeah.
So while we're in Edinburgh,
right,
somebody will screen that somewhere. Surely, all the comedians will be watching that in a pub or around somebody's house. I'm sure, or at least I'm sure it'll be on the radio. But I think the price to watch it was I saw £98 or something to see something. I remember watching boxing on the television. Surely even the Chris Eubank fight was televised for a regular person to watch. I think it was on just a normal television.
You take inspiration and some drive from other people's sort of like solo endeavours, you say.
For sure, yeah.
And like, is there anyone like that you at the moment where you kind of go, totally, that is. Like, say, if we're going to relate back to stand-up, is there anyone you go, that is where I would like to get to, or I would like to aspire to?
What, stand-up like people?
That? Yes.
Most of my influences are outside of comedy, In terms of, I'll tell you who I went to see. I'll tell you two people. I mean, they're at the top of their game, I saw Billy Connolly at the Hammersmith Apollo. Could have been last year, could have been the year before. Can't quite remember. But he wasn't well, Got the paralysed arm, down the one side. And he stood by a little table with what was some notes on it, that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think at one point he forgot what to say after about 10 minutes. But there was a bit of a silence and people were shouting, "We love you, Billy," and all this kind of thing. But it was absolutely. I mean, there's not many comedians who I'm out of the seat. Laughing. I mean out. Not even. I don't mean that in a metaphorical way. I'm over the knees and I'm out of the seat, jumping up, falling out of the seat. and he's so funny. I'd seen or heard a lot of the material before on a radio thing or whatever, because I'm a big fan. But he's the only comedian, one of, and the other one I'll tell you in a moment, comedians that I've seen who on the way home, even being a comedian, I would say to my Hillary, I'd say, was some of that made up on the spot? Do you know what I mean? And I'd heard it before. It wasn't made up, I'd heard it. But so convincing was it that it looked like somebody talking and breathing, you know. Yeah. And the second person who I saw in Edinburgh last year, twice, was Tommy Tiernan.
Wow, yeah.
Who I'm a huge fan of, and I've met Tommy to speak to, which is great, twice. Last Edinburgh, and then at Angel Comedy when he did 10 minutes, Brilliant. You know, something he was working out for television, and I spoke to him then. But what a great comedian, I mean, one of the very best, I think, in the world. As with Billy Connolly, I think two of the best comedians in the world today. No doubt, not just in Britain, but around the world, I think. And I saw his show twice last year. Was it Out of the Whirlwind? I can't think of what the name
of it was. Is that the improv one? It
wasn't the improv, no, it was a scripted one.
Oh, right.
I didn't see the improv one, although Russell Hicks, I think, who I spoke to, saw it, said that was great. I wish I'd seen that, but I'd listened to anything that he spoke about. And he is a phenomenally great, charismatic, like Billy Connolly, comedian. And the third one, which really which has been a huge influence to me, is Frank Skinner. Now, I met Frank Skinner to speak to, which is a great joy. How many times? Once. And it was after my first ever gig, and it was such a strange story. And my Hillary said, well, that's a good omen, you know. I did my first ever gig at the Lion's Den. You know it, I don't need to say if anyone... Shaftesbury Avenue. Yeah. Now, I'm a big frequenter of the Lion's Den to this day. And would you know, I'll probably be there tomorrow night before I go to Edinburgh. I stopped going for a while, then I started again. I really like it. Got a really good PA system and a really nice lighting. And of late, they've been getting quite a decent audience size. And I liked him, you know. And when you get to a certain point, you can do 10 minutes. Yeah. So I did my first gig there. And then afterwards, and it was Hillary that marched me down to the gig. Actually, I didn't want to do it. I did it in theory. My life has been a lot of theory. Right. And she said, well, just do it. So I did it. And afterwards, we went for a celebratory drink. Now, in those days, I drank alcohol. I don't anymore. It's been 4 years since I've had a drink. So it's been about 4 years since I've drank alcohol. And then I've been doing comedy for 6.5 years. So then I was a drinker. So we went for a Prosecco at Cafe Coa, which is just next to Wyndham's Theatre. Yeah, behind Wyndham's, in the West End. So we went there for a drink. So we're having a celebratory drink. I did my first gig. I'm a comedian, you know. And who was in there but Frank Skinner with a friend, male friend. And I said, I can't believe it, look, Frank Skinner. So I thought, shall I go over and say hi? But it was in Cafe Coy. It's quite a nice, well-to-do. It's not a pub, you know, it's a restaurant bar, frequented by theatre types. Maybe next the backstage of Wyndham, so maybe those types will go in there. I didn't want to interrupt him in the place where you'd go to after a show. Anyway, as I saw him leave, and I thought, I just can't not speak to him. He's leaving. I may never see him again. So I followed him out, and I ran after him down the side street. And I said, Frank Skinner. And he turned around, and he didn't look very pleased, to be honest. But that was probably my reading of it. And straight away I said, I'm a comedian. And his face looked like it softened. And he stopped, and I said, I've just done my first ever gig. And he looked all right with that. Yeah. So I was a bit nervous. I said, it's great to meet you and everything. And he said this, he said, well, I am the ghost of Christmas past. You are the future of comedy. Remind me, what's your name? I told him my name. He said, well, I'll remember. It's a polite thing to say. And what a lovely thing to say to somebody. That he was the old guard, as it were, and this is a new person doing his first gig. So that was great. And my Hillary said, well, that's a good omen, isn't it, that you've met your... What was at the time, you know, I mean, still is a great comedy hero. So, but I respect Frank Skinner in all different ways, but mainly in his writing. Some of the most beautifully crafted and well-written writing that I've ever seen in stand-up. I mean, anywhere. I mean, also someone like Jerry Seinfeld, something like that. But it's beautiful. I mean, great. Great. So those are the three main ones I would say influenced me coming as a comedian, but more in the comedy sense, because you don't get to know about these people. A lot of performers you don't know about apart from now when you do have a podcast, Stuart Goldsmith's podcast, you get to know the nitty gritty of the thing. So they can't really be an influence in terms of work ethic, because you don't know the ins and outs of that.
You're right.
You're not sure about that. So only in comedy wise, what they all have in common, which I suppose I'm looking for in my comedy, is that they're effortless. Certainly Connolly and Tiernan. It's supposed to appear to look like a person talking, whereas Skinner, it's effortless, very effortless. I mean, absolutely superb. I've seen Frank Skinner many times live. He is posing as, in many ways, a comedian, telling you funny things. Whereas the difference, I would say, Tiernan and Connolly are presuming to be people telling you their real things. Do you see the difference? What I'm trying to say?
Absolutely.
So in my comedy, I would say I am posing as a human, sharing my stories, and I'm not posing as a performer, a comedian. So that I would differentiate, and I've thought about that as I've gone along. So I would never mention in my while I was on stage, I'd never mention something funny that happened to me at a gig. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I like to try to keep the worlds separate, so the world I'm creating is a person. So that's quite difficult, but I think that's something that Tommy Tiernan, we're expected, and Billy Connolly to believe that these anecdotes are real. And Frank Skinner as well, but do you see what I mean?
No, absolutely.
There's a difference there.
There's no barrier between you and the audience. I've seen your act before. It's quite surreal in places, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're sort of like you're looking through this mask of being a human, and then showing them the abstract lives that we all live.
Yeah, I'd like to think it wasn't. I tell you who did that really well was the forerunner, and has been in many ways sort of seen as the prerequisite before his time as a alternative comedian. That was Frankie Howerd,
Yeah.
And when Frankie Howerd started, what a lot of people don't realise is that he was one of the only comedians at the time to wear his own clothes. Now, when you look back now, he's wearing a suit, what a lot of comedians would wear now. And let's say live at the Apollo or something. But at the time, comedians had costumes, Let's say someone at the back end of, not literally the back end of Max Miller, but, wore a costume. A lot of these variety acts were comedians posing as comedians. Whereas when Frankie Howerd came along, he was pretending to be a person that had arrived there by accident almost. So he had his own clothes on, the brown suit, a bit tatty, a bit of a stain maybe on it. And he was saying, well, I'm not with those people, I've just wandered up here. And well, while I'm here, why don't we talk about, my back or whatever. I've got this bad back. I'll tell you a couple of jokes while I'm here.
Yeah.
See how well you're not understanding it,
Yeah.
So that's interesting for me, that watching old tapes of that, I find, obviously I never saw him live. I'm not old enough to remember him even on the television or anything, but he's a fascinating character in that sense. And I suppose I've been influenced by... Do you know, I'll tell you something interesting. When I talk about my life, I did a gig, a lovely gig with Paul Rickett. Do you know Paul Rickett?
Yeah.
A lovely gig, out of bounds gigs, the Richard Minnis ones, and I really like those ones. And this one was in a school, a lovely big audience, they're ever so nice gigs. And I wasn't opening; I was in the middle there, doing a full set in the middle. And sometimes afterwards, an audience member will say to me, "You don't seem old enough to have remembered these things that you're talking about." I just think the north of England maybe was so backward. You know what I mean? When I talk about Frankie Howerd and things. And being influenced by that. Maybe that was through my parents, or... Do you know what I mean? I don't know how I was influenced by those things.
Yeah.
I talk in my act about making a bean tin telephone. Do you remember the two tins
Yeah.
with the string in it?
Uh-huh.
And someone said to me, "You don't look." Someone said in a review, Bruce Dessau did the Piccadilly Comedian final
Yeah.
a couple of years back, maybe it was last year. He said he doesn't look old enough to remember that, but I spoke to a comedian who was in their 20s who remembers that. But sometimes I think maybe the north of England was backward, you know, maybe we did those things maybe those olden day things remained for longer. Do you know what I mean? In the northeast of England.
Yeah.
I know my grandma, people don't believe my grandma, this is true, I mean, to the day probably before she died, she had a mangle.
Yeah.
And a post tub, you know this.
Yeah.
I think she had a washing machine in the latter years, but the post tub with a stick in the metal barrel, you know, and the mangle to dry the clothes or to at least take the water out was a thing, and they lived in York. But that was right up until through the 90s and the 2000s, you know.
What was the thing called that
they used to play that in a skiffle band, you know.
Yeah, what is that? It's like a little board, isn't it?
With a metal corrugated thing. I don't know what that was. What was that for? Drying?
I think it's for scrubbing. You know,
scrubbing,
You know, you've had the thing in that,
But some people had those in certain parts of Britain, and so I just find that an odd thing. So the influence of Frankie Howard is an odd thing. I don't know where that came in or what I was watching. I don't think Frankie Howard would have been on the television. I might have caught the very back end of Larry Grayson.
Right.
But I don't think these people were on the television. When I was young, I think it was Joe Pasquale, maybe.
Right.
If I was thinking Seaside Entertainment, would have been...
Carry-ons?
The back end of the Carry-Ons would have been Little and Large, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Rather than the Frankie Howards would have gone by then.
When I was younger, I don't think we were that different in age-wise. Yeah. But I think that when I was younger, I think that all the Monty Python stuff, that was gone, but that's still around. Everyone's like, "Have you seen this?" And you get locked into that culture, and you just get.
Do you like the Pythons?
Love them, great.
I'm the opposite. No. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Yeah. And I can watch it, but I don't like. I mean, you mentioned my act is a little bit surreal, but I can't watch surreal comedy. Right. I absolutely adore Eddie Izzard.
Yes,
but I just can't.
Brilliant.
I just can't bring myself to.
Face it.
To laugh at it. Or Noel Fielding, you know, the Mighty Bush. Even, I tell you who's these are brilliant comedians. I'll tell you who's a brilliant comedian. Ross Noble.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's a Geordie, you know, northeastern. But I just can't, I've watched his on YouTube, you know. What an extraordinary comedian. And I love the improv stuff, you know, and he's talking... riffing, if you would call it that. I don't like these comedy terms, but talking to the audience and making it funny.
Yeah.
We had this whole debate about crowd work, which I hate that.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't do these things, but if I say something like a badger with a ukulele, do you know what I mean by that kind of humour?
Yeah.
I just find that not funny, you know.
It's a surprise, is it?
Something in my psyche,
No.
If it's some Eddie Izzard, he says something like jam or some badger eating jam or something. It's always a badger usually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or a horse with, I don't know.
Or a mole.
A talking horse, a mole.
Shrew or something.
On a skateboard or something. Yeah. I just gotta find that fun. I just gotta find that funny. Yeah. Even though they're extraordinarily talented. Yeah. I tell you the level of surrealism that I can do is Sean Locke.
Yeah, love it.
I'll tell you for why, because Sean Locke, and you could probably argue that Ross Noble and Eddie Izzard do the same thing, and I just don't get it. But he starts in reality. So he might be walking around Lidl or something. I'm there. But then suddenly he's opening a can of something and wasps, you know, cooked in their own doings or something. And suddenly it's this surreal thing. He's a brilliant comedian. I mean, you couldn't get a better comedian than Sean Locke. Absolutely at the top of his game. Brilliant. Man in a Purple Van. If it's just a Purple Van Man, there was the last DVD, I think, was absolutely brilliant. You know what bugs me a little bit when people say, I think they mean their own counterparts in comedy. But I've heard people say in interviews and things, younger comedians, that comedy's not in a great state or it's not great. Maybe they're forgetting the people who are still working and just talking about their own class of. In their own lot, but if you look at the Edinburgh brochure last year, the year before this year, Oh, I mean, there's brilliant comedy. Tony Law, Sarah Pascoe. I mean, Ivor Graham. I mean, if live at the BBC, you watch that. It's great. It's great. I mean, Sean Locke's still working. Eddie Izzard's still working. Lee Mack, Alan Carr. Mickey Flanagan's on tour again. Yeah. Why are people saying that comedy's not in a great... Do you know what I mean? No. You hear that.
They haven't looked in the right places.
I think they mean themselves for some reason.
Well, it must be, yeah.
But even newer comedy, there's brilliant comedians, In terms of, you might not like... I don't know if you like the person, but the creative ideas, some brilliant comedians. And I did the Stand and Calling yesterday, which I did last year. A great festival. I think it's very early in the comedy. I think they maybe did comedy for the first time last year. So I think it's a new for comedy. It's a great. Grace Jones was on. Wow. She's not funny. When she was doing music, Gary Newman was playing as we left actually on the main stage, and some younger ones that I don't know. Some other music. But I think comedy's in its infancy there. I think it was last year. And I did the first one last year. But I opened yesterday, full set. But who else was on? John Robbins was headlining. Nathan Caton, Andy Robinson, who was a regular MC at the Glee. If you don't know who, at Birmingham Glee. Tanya Edwards and me. Wow. I mean, why? What a lovely lineup there. All different, all doing interesting things. And there was comedy on the Saturday and the Sunday and the Friday as well. And Robin Ince, all different comedians. Yeah. So there's the wealth of comedy now. If is creative wise, is in rude health. Maybe on the circuit, financially and stuff. Maybe that's not great. But people like me coming through as a comedian after 6.5 years. I don't know if the circuit is. I don't know what that is. I certainly haven't made any money since I started, And I don't mean I don't get paid money, but I've not made any money above the line of losing money. I haven't made any money in the 6.5 years that I've been doing it, And I've gigged, the good gigs, all the places you would want to gig at. But I tell you what the positive of that is. I think if you, this is my opinion, I always preface it with that, you don't need to say it's my opinion. I said that before, you know what I mean? I'm the only one speaking here, so you know what I mean at this point, so I don't need to say this is my opinion. People would know that. When I moved away from looking for money, I got better gigs, in better places, and I'm more fulfilled at this point, I think when you start comedy, you want to tell people that you're getting a paid gig, and that's natural. So you say, "Oh, I'm getting a paid gig here. I'm doing £20, £40, whatever it is." But as soon as I realised that, I had a day job anyway, so essentially I didn't need any money. Do you know what I mean? So I thought, why don't I just look for gigs that are nice ones and good ones? So then you get in at the Comedy Store, and late shows at the Comedy Store. The Glee ones, the Stand ones, and they're unpaid. At my level, 10 minutes, whatever you're doing, 15 minutes, whatever it is. But that's better, So I've really, in the last couple of years, really improved my lot, really, in terms of the gigs, the CV, the Bolt Show, whatever it is. Yeah, they've all been relatively unpaid or totally unpaid. But then again, I work in the daytime, so. Most of the time to afford Edinburgh and things in the theatre, children's theatre. So I think comedy's in a good state, and I'm not so much worried about the circuit element, I'm not sure if there's a career to be made like somebody that's been going for longer than me on the circuit, You
did your first Edinburgh show, was that with Tom Ward?
Tom Ward, now the dates I don't remember, so I think that was 2015, right. Because Tom was in the final of the BBC Comedy Award, was already been in the final of that, so that would have been August we did the show, and then I was in the final in the November of the same year. So I think that was 2015. We did the PBH Cowgate show, split hour, which was brilliant. It's called Award-Winning Storey, which is great. So I think that was a great show, and that was great working with Tom and everything. Yeah. So that was a success, I would say, from my point, from from my personal point of view. And then the year after, I went to the Counting House, which was then the Gilded Balloon.
Oh.
So it moved from the Free Fringe to the Gilded Balloon, which was, well, the year that Tom and I did the Cowgate, the Cowgate was under the microscope for some weird stuff.
There was a swap. People had booked rooms and other people had taken those rooms, and it was all going up in the air, wasn't it?
Was the Freestable thing? That's right.
Yeah.
So that was that year. The year that I did the Counting House was the year of the debacle with the. So every year, you see, was the should it be Gilded Balloon? But you know what? I was so well looked after, and they had front of house, and they had the situation, where the audience went in the bar, and then they were shown to the. It was all laid on, and they had people doing the tech. If you wanted it, you're paid for these things, and I didn't have that. What I did, I did 45 minutes, a show called Funny Storey, which was very well received, some nice reviews, and it was sold out for almost half of the whole run on the board, Gilded Balloon board at the TV. It sold out. I was so very proud of that. It got a lot of footfall there, and I did a lot of work flyering, and they put up all the posters for you and everything. It's all laid on. The Gilded Balloon looked after you so well in there. Yeah, so what I did tech-wise was I thought I'd be quite lonely because it's just me. It's a solo show, isn't it? I'd never done that before. I thought I'll be lonely. So what I'll do is I'll ask people that I'm working with on the London comedy open mic thing, different comedians, to come in one every day for the whole month, or as long as they could do. Pay them from the bucket. Whatever at £20, £10, whatever at 15 quid, whatever it was. And they could sit at the back. But the idea wasn't to do the tech. I had no tech, I had play some music at the end. That was it. I did my own start,
Yeah.
And I recorded this thing, my own voice, introducing me to the stage. But they just played the song at the start, at the end. But I thought, well, I'll be less lonely then. So that's what I did, and I got a lovely. Most of the thing was done by either my partner Hilary or a lovely actor called Will Newell. Do you know Will? Quite a tall chap. Lovely comedian starting out on his comedy journey. But he helped for about a week or so. He was working there now, actually, in Edinburgh. And he came to see me at the stand, actually, to show support when I did the 3 stands, But he helped out, did the tech there, so that eased the loneliness. And I got used to knowing how to do a solo show just on my own, and how to work that and what that would feel like. And I think I did a couple of shows, maybe one show, that I did it on my own. And that was quite strange. With a full house, just me.
Yeah.
And I did my own tech, actually. I took a CD player on, did my own tech that night, which was fine. DIY style. That was the making of me, really, the solo show. Because I realised that I could really do it.
Yeah.
And I did 45 minutes. In fact, some days I stayed on to the full hour,
Yeah.
And I really had what I used in the previews was a music stand, classical music stand with my notes, and so I used that in the show, and I worked off that. So every day I was changing the running order and doing different things.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I had a really good show, and that was the show it was a rehearsal really for the hour this year.
Great.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
Was to do a work in progress and work the material.
Yeah.
Which was a theme sort of thing, but it was just existing, all the material that I'd got so far. So that was the plan for this year, but that didn't sort of work out. So I still did the previews for this year with the director, Kevin Shepherd.
Right.
Who, do you know Kevin?
I don't. No.
Yeah, he's a lovely comedian in his own right, an excellent director. So I was working with him. I still did the in fact, I'm still working with him now, and he's going to come to Edinburgh.
Great.
And if he couldn't attend the previews, I sent him a tape. I filmed it.
Brilliant.
So he's got some notes still from the last one. So I've got this hour show, which I was going to call No Ordinary Eccentric, which I thought was nice. Ordinary, and it was a really nice little thing there. And so I've been working with PR and stuff. That didn't work out. So I'm shelving that. But of course, in a year from now, that show, that material will be better, but also it will be different. The title will change.
Of course.
And I had a photo shoot, so the images will change.
Yeah.
And it will change, so a year's time a lot can change. We could all be dead by then, so... Do you know what I mean? So I'm not...
No, absolutely. But it's going to be wonderful. I mean, once you have it in your head now, and it's going to be just like, as you said, like before, like breathing. You'll be like, okay, this is the bit now.
Yeah, so all of that material there, I'm trying not to do that in Edinburgh this year. But I think I'll probably top and tail the 40 minutes this year with maybe 10 or 7 or 8 either end. Put the new stuff in the middle, you know. So hopefully this year I'm going to come away from Edinburgh with I'm doing 2 shows, but I'll come away from Edinburgh with hopefully a solid. The goal is a solid half an hour of new, all new material. That's nothing in this hour that I've got.
Yeah.
So then by September, October, November of this year, I'll put some of that stuff that I've done in Edinburgh into the weekend gigs to really test it out.
Yeah.
And by Christmas, you know, I hopefully have a solid hour and a half there, which I think is great. 6.5 years in, and then by next Edinburgh, who knows? The goal would be to maybe have 2 hours, you know, that I can plane down into a debut, and I'm really excited about that.
That's great.
So actually, I'm the kind of person, in retrospect, that would say that not doing it this year has been brilliant. It's been a godsend. I'm an atheist, but let's say a godsend. And I think that's a great position to be in. And I've been, you know, people talk about years doing it and all this kind of thing, but I think 6.5 years now, I think that's very early. I think I have no qualms or no frustrations about anything in the industry 6.5 years in. That's too... It's far too early, and I did a gig a couple of weeks back at Piccadilly Comedy, and it was all coming together.
Yeah.
Open there, the Piccadilly downstairs, and it was all coming together, and the voice and the overall feel of the movement of the pieces together.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is great now. But I suppose, as you know, every 6 months or so, you turn another corner and you think, oh, I've got it now. Then the next 6 months you think, oh, I didn't have it because this is better. And with the stand-and calling yesterday, I was first up, and it was in a tent, and there was lots of background noise, and it was a festival, people coming and going. There was children there, but I really enjoyed it, and I really felt at ease, and I'm so relaxed now. And I'll tell you, a very good thing that I've learned is that as a human person, as a child, I think I was on the edge, could have been on the edge of precocious. Do you know what I mean? Not full precocious. Not how you'd imagine Robbie Williams being. And I really like him. But I think there was something of that in me. But sometimes I think as a child that can be squashed. And certainly as you go through adolescence into adulthood, you can get rid of that and think that's not a good thing to be, is precocious. But that is what is driving me at the moment, and that is what drives the... I don't like to call it a set, and I won't call it an act, but that's what drives the... let's call it the comedy when I'm doing it. And now that I'm tapping into that, there's nothing wrong with wanting to stand in the spotlight, and there's nothing wrong with wanting for people to look at you and to be the centre of attention. And I think to overcome that and to be on the other side of that as I am now, and that's the motor underneath the what the art, you know, under the creative writing and the imagination is the precocious child.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
That would be your, like, say, your line for who you are on stage, is you're a precocious child pretending to be human.
No, I don't think that's the comedy voice.
Okay, right.
But that's the motor.
The motor, right.
So if I would say to myself, which I don't, but the subconscious, before I go on to the stage, why am I doing it?
Right.
You come up with a different reason.
Sure.
That's the reason.
Okay.
The show off.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm saying that for my benefit, but I'm also saying that for somebody else's benefit. And I think there's nothing wrong. It's the same in the industry when people... We can become very self-deprecating. That's a human device. So if you were to ask me, what do you want from comedy? You can be self-deprecating and try to stay away from saying fame, or stay away from saying panel show, or you would maybe stay away from saying ambition, or those things that seem or have been led to seem as empty and false
and ugly as well.
And ugly,
yeah.
But I do believe in laws of attraction, and I was talking about this to somebody else, and I was saying if you don't put it out there, it doesn't come to you. So there's nothing wrong with having. I was going to try to make an analogy there. You know, the cake and eat it. I was going to say there's nothing wrong with having your art and I couldn't think of the second bit and eating it.
Yeah,
but that doesn't work. But you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be an artist, because even the great. This is the argument I was saying. Do you not think that Bob Dylan didn't want to be famous?
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine that that's what he wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can still be an artist and still want to show the art on a big stage. You want to be compared. Do you not think a great artist wants to be compared to another great artist? Not a great artist wants to be compared to someone in a pub or a. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there's nothing wrong in admitting that, and I think this is the same thing as saying about the precocious child. There's nothing wrong with saying that the motor is look at me.
Yeah.
I'm in a spotlight. There's nothing wrong in that.
That's good. I think that's really interesting, because I find that, like, you know, because when you start to do like that, self-deprecating thing can be a real vicious cycle, and you can start to
believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. And the dangerous thing is, I mean, I'm writing my show at the moment, and a lot of the stuff is from the past, and it's a story-based show with a narrative, and I've done the material quite a lot. Yeah. And it's kind of, you know, I've run through it many, many times now, and it really starts to, if you're not careful, can drill into your head. You go, oh, okay, I'm feeling everything that I did feel, but now I did it for jokes, but now I brought it to the fore, and now I'm living it again. Yeah. So that strikes a chord with me right now at this moment, that what you're saying.
Look, if you said to somebody, we're talking about laws of attraction, and I see you've got the artist's way as well.
That's it, yeah.
I love it. I did morning pages through Edinburgh last year every morning at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
For the whole month, and it really helped me out. But the laws of attraction, for me, and the artist's way, the where I depart on, or zone out on these books, is it mentions God in the book, you know. Right. And laws of attraction, again, there's some spiritual journey there, but I'm not a partaker in that. I don't believe that. I'm not into that. So, but laws of attraction, if, for example, you're talking to another comedian, you know, and you said to them, you know what, I'm an artist, I'm going to do this on my own. Don't need management, and I don't want to sell out and do a panel show. So you say that to somebody, and then this is the simple laws of attraction. They're talking to somebody else and say, that Andy Storey's good, or Winter Phonander's good, or I might like him on my thing, and then I say, no, he's going to do it on. He wants to do it on his own. He doesn't need an agent. He doesn't need management. This is laws of attraction working in reality. So this is the basis of it, that you put out into the world the smallest seed there. So if you lock off from all of the, do you see what I mean? So
absolutely.
If you're going to be whatever, so
you're closing doors for yourself, right?
Closing doors, and that's what laws of attraction is. You go outside, you face the world and other people in a positive way. In a friend, it's difficult. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, and then that comes back to you. Like karma is the same thing. For me, that's not a spiritual thing. It's not a real thing. It's not magic. It's only, in many ways, evolutionary or a practical consideration. Social, exactly. Yeah. You do a good deed, and that is returned through this winding series of events. The butterfly effect that come back to you
through our pack mentality that we all have, isn't it? Yeah. It's okay, you're looking after me, well, that's fine. That's one part of my pack there. I can trust them. They're good to me. I'm good back to them. Oh yeah, I remember that. Thanks. And it's all barter system we're working on, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's liberating. I even feel powerful talking about that. Precocious child thing, and also the spotlight, look at me thing, and also the the wanting what you actually want, you know. And even then, I stopped myself from saying it. Yeah, the word,
interesting.
The word fame or the word. It's difficult to say it.
Yeah,
it's difficult to say. You want to be well known. That doesn't rule out the integrity of the artist. Daniel Kitson is playing to big audiences. It does not, Stuart Lee, it does not rule out that you're playing to four men in a... Do you know what I mean? They've both... many people have integrity. I mean, Mickey Flanagan has integrity. Or Michael McIntyre, they have integrity. And, you know, you mentioned someone like Kitson or somebody. They're not playing to nobody.
Yeah.
He's playing the Roundhouse, or whatever. That's not 10 people in there. Do you know what I mean?
Like, just because you say you want fame doesn't mean to say you haven't got any work ethic or you're not striving towards something.
And Kitson might not want fame, but surely he wants to show his work on a level that can affect people on a larger and larger level.
Yeah.
I mean, this must be the thing, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
He wouldn't. The argument could be, yes, we would do it anyway. Yes, I think I would search out a spotlight anyway. But just because I'm searching out a spotlight doesn't lessen my integrity in what I'm doing as a comedian. Neither does it lessen my integrity because I went to drama school. These things are a false notion that because, and you hear it said, an actor. Also, if you say, oh, this person is doing comedy, and then you see them presenting a television program, that doesn't lessen their integrity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see people off the curb, whatever, and then they're hosting a TV program. I don't understand why that's a negative. And they're still brilliant comedians. Jack Whitehall is a brilliant comedian. You don't come out of the wings live at the Apollo and host live at the Apollo at the age of 20, whatever he is, without having a great skill, you know. I don't understand why people would say these things. You might not enjoy the comedy, and that's fine, as Eddie Izzard, a great comedian. I'm not laughing, but it's brilliant, you know. But to do that, Jack White, whoever it is, they're superbly talented. You take the same person, they're criticising, and put them in the wings tonight and have them come out and host live these programmes. It's very difficult being a comedian, you know. All I'm saying is that none of these things lessen the integrity in which you are doing the thing that you're doing, you know. I'm not less a comedian because I went to drama school. Nobody's saying that, but you hear this of other people. Oh, he's an actor. So on and so forth. You don't need to be, you know.
I'd argue that the other side of that.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier, I mean, it's hard to keep centred, especially if you haven't come at it from a performance background.
Yeah.
And I think that is a massive advantage, I feel. That and teachers, because they were used to speaking in front of people and in many people in the room.
But you know what that says about me and those people is that I started performing when I was about 10 or 11 in the amateur dramatic Deos. But what that shows to me is the opposite. That shows to me somebody with a desire to perform, you know, a desire to, and it was always comic roles anyway, but a desire as a child to be in entertainment. So that's the opposite of what doesn't lessen the integrity. In fact, is a person who you might say was born to do it, not the opposite. You know, in this country, stand-up comedy, in British stand-up comedy, I always say is history is on a spectrum of, in many ways, but on a spectrum of light entertainment. From Harry Hill, that kind of thing. From Jason Manford, kind of thing. Let's go back, further back than that. Joe Pasquale kind of thing. Little and Large kind of thing. Frankie Howard kind of thing. And let's go forward from that to Alan Carr, to Sean Locke, to Mickey Flanagan. There's a similarity between all these comedians. And then you have the other comedians. I would say that the light entertainment ones, I would say they were actually English. And the other, the Billy Connolly, Scottish, the Irish, the Dave Allen, have something other to offer. But then you've got the Americans, and what I call psychiatric couch comedy is not what we were doing in this country. And I think now the huge influence of that kind of comedy, brilliant comedians in the American ones, brilliant. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld actually is not psychiatric couch comedy. Louis C.K., I would say, is this. By the way, these are my terms, nobody else's terms. I have some strange terms for comedy. Chris Rock, Louis C.K., Lenny Bruce, all the ones anyway, what I call psychiatric couch, talking about real things. In England, we had, it wasn't until, quite later on that we changed from the man walks into until it was I walked into the bar, into that sort of change around. But what I'm trying to say is we have all these different styles, and they're all, one you would call stand-up comedy. In then, because Americans invented what we perhaps what we would call stand-up comedy, and in this country, what I would call light entertainment. Now, you could argue the point semantically, vaudeville, variety. Let's call it what I call light entertainment. Now, my point being, one would call one entertainment, the other one would be called stand-up comedy. But from my point of view, the Mickey Flanagan or the Alan Carr is not doing it with less integrity. For me, it's both stand-up comedy. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one is not less because one has been done in a holiday camp. One is not... Michael Barrymore, another influence of mine actually, one is not less, to my mind, just because it's on a Saturday night family entertainment show. It's not... That person hasn't got less integrity. And sometimes I feel that. This was the whole thing with the club comedy thing that came about, if you saw in various comedy publications, sort of looking down on club comedy, club comedians. Do you see what I mean? And saying what they were doing was sort of club comedy. Again, sort of this looking down the nose at this kind of thing. But my opinion is, people aren't doing it with less integrity, is my point. You're still an artist, whether you're Michael Barrymore. Controversial talking point. I'll say it anyway. I think there's no less integrity applied to the performer if you're Barrymore or you're Daniel Kitson. It's the same. From the outside, you can have whatever opinion you want, but when they walk out from the wings, they're not doing it with less integrity. And it's the same thing.
There's still the work ethic, there's still the drive, there's still the discipline.
The same.
Exactly the same.
It's the
You're
same.
right.
So I think we should have respect ultimately for all the performers. It's difficult to walk out there, and I think that's important. I have great respect personally for any kind of performer, of whatever level. It's very difficult.
And going back to when you spoke to Frank Skinner after your first gig, and that's the thing, so you've got to be humble to learn, to be aware, to get better. So whatever level you're at, you can only be humble because you're going to be humbled wherever you go. It's going to happen. You can't always control everything. You can't control everything.
I think there's a lot of cliches and things. Another cliche, which Frank Skinner reminded me of there. Someone say, when you're starting out, whatever, if you're... Well, you can read them and think they're real, and they say something like, a comedian who says they're not nervous is either lying or not very good. Now, Frank Skinner said he was never nervous. Now, is he lying? Well, he's certainly great. So it's not the other one. So you were saying he's a liar. I mean, I was never that nervous. And I don't think... I'm not nervous anymore. I mean, I'm not hardly nervous at all, but I wasn't hardly nervous when I started, but I don't think that's because I was an actor.
Right, okay.
And that's just a person, I think.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, the way I see stand-up is not an act, I don't see it as an act. I see it as sharing the ideas, so I don't see it as putting on an act or doing an act. For me, I think that's how perhaps I survive it, because for me, I don't really think someone who said they've never bombed before, is either lying or rubbish. But again, it depends the way you view it, because yes, people haven't laughed before, and I've had some awful. So you would call that dying, I've had some awful gigs. Yeah. One last year, which is terrible. All sorts of ones. Yes, where you'd call that dying, but because I consider it sharing ideas. For me, they just were ideas. All is just what interested. You know what I mean? I suppose this is maybe a survival thing in my mind, but I don't view it as an act or a joke that didn't work. Do you know what I mean?
Is there any other mental gymnastics or arithmetic that you've done to get to this point of like, you know what, right, to get you calm in this situation?
I just think that was already in my mind, you know. I think I've always been a performer, so I think I would never have called myself an actor, really. I like the idea of performer, you know. Maybe I don't know, even stand-up comedian, I don't like defining the thing, you know what I mean? It seems childish, really, not to say I'm a stand-up comedian, so I am. But I think I already had I think my personality is a perfect match for stand-up as a performer and also stand-up the industry. I think my personality already has the prerequisite things that had them in place already to survive, if you want to call it that. Sounds dramatic. Survive the industry. I'm not in the forefront of my conscious self-critical, and I'm not in the forefront of my brain depressed, anxious, any of these things. In the subconscious, that is maybe all working itself out there. Yesterday I had a great gig, the stand-up calling, but there was a few bits I missed out that I forgot to do, and some bits the premise wasn't quite right. I'm still not doing the right premise. Leading them into a bit doesn't quite work. But I'm not thinking about that on the way back from the gig. I never think about it. But the subconscious is thinking about it. But I'm never thinking about it. And on the way here today, I made some notes on my phone about the bit, but I didn't think about it. I don't live my life thinking about myself.
So you have your id and your ego balanced.
Yeah.
So you go, look, id, you carry on the background working that out.
Yeah.
I'll just carry on with what's going on right now.
Yeah, you can be depressed in the background. I'm not interested. I never dwell on anything.
Yeah.
I could bomb at a gig for sure. Take me 5 minutes.
Brilliant.
Even less.
Brilliant.
I'm not even thinking about it.
That's
I don't
nice.
care. Honestly, don't care. But somebody's thinking about it.
Yeah.
In some part of me in there, because the next day I've worked on the stuff and I'm making notes that have come from my brain how to make it better. But I don't live my life worrying about stuff. I said to Russell Hicks actually, which is it sounds like a confession of illness, but I've seen the end, you know.
Right.
And I mean that in terms of life. So I'm not affected by anything in the present. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
To that degree, because I've seen the end, and the end is near. That sounds like a Bible thing. I'm not religious, and I don't mean the end of the world. I mean the end of life.
Sure.
My life. And that I'm not ill, you know. It's not a confession of... I think I've always felt that. I mean, sure, when I was younger, you know, I've had all different thoughts that are different to this. But certainly as an adult. And I think that's what's certainly driven me on to achieve things and to, you know, get better and improve and, you know, learn. And I'm all for learning in the industry and as a comedian. And you never know it all. And I'm certainly not arrogant, you know. I'm not even a self-publicist. I'm not that kind of person. But I'm very sure. I'm not frustrated by anything in the industry. Because in the final of the BBC in 2015, and the final was at the Comedy Store, it happened to be there. It wasn't always there. The year Tom Ward did it was the Comedy Store. Maybe that was the first year, I might be wrong, but so I was there in the afternoon. Live, Steve Wright in the afternoon. And I drew the short straw and I was on first. That was a real turning point for me in terms of the physical comedy. And I had a really good show. And afterwards, I was approached by agents, and I had sit-down meetings with different people. And for whatever reason, some didn't quite fit, you know, what they wanted or what I wanted, and we don't need to say why, but whatever reason they'd seen the act, they'd liked it, but it didn't work out. So then going through doing some gigs, and then I thought to myself, you know what, that's fine to do it on my own at this point. And I met some agents, and that didn't work out. What was I thinking about? I mean, just sometimes you have a realisation of what are you talking about? And I didn't quite understand what I was doing, you know, in terms of focus, you know. What is that? The point I'm trying to make is, if you perceive in your subconscious or your semi-conscious that no one in the industry has any interest in your person, it's difficult to express what I'm saying because it's like a esoteric thing. Yeah. So it's not real. It's not a practical thing. Yeah. You're just doing what you were always doing. What I sort of realised was those things, they don't sort of have an effect on I was saying before, the integrity of what you're doing. You're still doing it.
The thing was in an end in itself. You got to the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
You were doing your... you opened for the Comedy.
It was great. It was great.
It's amazing. This is
and I wasn't nervous. And I had a great gig.
Yeah.
And I was first up. And I did a late show for the Comedy Store. And I was chatting there with some other comedians that I knew. Luckily, I knew some of the people backstage. So even more relaxed. My first late show, 1:45, I was on. Doing my longer stories, I was delighted to open with a story that has no laughs in it until about a minute in, it's 1:45. That's what I did, Delight, that was very exciting. But the name was announced and I just sort of skipped in and did it. And what I'm saying is that is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And I think with that attitude, the gigs I get and the success that I'm having is because of that. That the focus for me has always been, I suppose that's what I'm saying in a simplified way, on the work, the integrity of the work, which then, if focused on, reaps the rewards that are in this subconscious. Do you see what I mean? If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely, totally does.
That if you focus on the industry, that for me, something I was saying before as well in Edinburgh, but the festival, an arts festival, presumably when it started was for the artist creating to do something, try something different. You do your art in the clubs maybe as a comedian, and then you go and do something different, or whatever. But it seems to me industry-led, that you go there and you're under pressure to do your best thing or to showcase the best thing. Whereas I think this year, the years I've been there, just going to do what I would like to do. And if that's using the opportunity in a free show to enjoy with the audience some new ideas and to share those new experiences that I've been having, some of them which might be hilarious, some that might be semi-funny, some that might be not funny at all, but will be still interesting. Hopefully, with some charisma, you can enjoy that, whatever the outcome of the bit that you're doing, the story. That's what's important, and I'm sure that's what the Fringe was there for in the first place. But I understand the industry. I'm not, like I said before, I understand it and what it's there for, and how that can forward a career. But as Tommy Tiernan said, what is there such thing as a career? What is that? So there's two sides really. Yes, I want a career, and yes, I want to be paid, make a living from it, so that this is what I can do as the only thing. Don't have to do a day job, and that's what most people want, I think. But the main thing is that I'm doing it and I'm creating, and that is also a life choice and a lifestyle and a life ambition. But that, I think, is the key to success, because with that, all the cards are stacked in my favour. I can't lose here. There's no loss. There's no failure in my mind. On a minutiae gig level, in a career, I'm doing sort of inverted fingers, whatever you call that here, in a career level, there's no failure there. Because I don't understand these concepts. I win
either way.
So either way.
Great.
Because I'm doing it, do you know what I mean? I think that's important, and I really feel that. When you get the knocks, which we do as human nature, they don't, as I say, that's working on a subconscious. Somewhere in my subconscious might be a bipolar, depressed, I'll upset some people now by saying that, depressed or whatever, broken person. And maybe all humans are broken. I don't know. Certainly, day to day, night to night, even in the darkness of a darkened room when my Hillary's away for the week, although I'm not great on my own. I've got a friend of mine who, when he's on his own, he said he walks around the house like a dinosaur, in the dinosaur movement, when his girlfriend's not there. So I think I can be like that sometimes, but I'm never sad,
Yeah.
And I'm never about comedy or things that are,
Yeah.
I'm not a psychopath. I'm sad about somebody dies, I'm not coming across as a psychopath, but I'm not cold.
Yeah.
Life is too very, very brief to be overly concerned. I see a lot of these posts on Facebook, and people are getting excited about Edinburgh, but it's an arts festival. That's not. I read one. Make sure you drink try to drink some water. It's not World War One. It's not the Tour de France. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't drink. I would say don't drink any water. If you like a gin and tonic, drink a gin and tonic. If you want to eat biscuits for the whole month,
sure,
eat biscuits. Yeah. Enjoy yourself. You know. Don't get too. Yes, do it with integrity and yes, with passion. But you don't need to. Yeah. It's not a sport, and a lot of the time, it's big industry now, of course. Careers and things, and people take it very seriously, and I understand that. And you see actors nowadays. There was a time when actors, Oliver Reed and things, used to. Well, he died, of course, of drink. It's very sad. Peter O'Toole used to tell anecdotes about drinking. I mean, nowadays, the young actors. I mean, you probably might not work again if you talk about that kind of thing. You've got your Evian water, you've got your man's bag, like I've got. You've got your satchel and your Evian water and your script. You turn up on time. Vitamins. And that's vitamins, yes, of course, and it's big industry now. So I understand if people treat it as a sport. You keep fit, you take your electrolytes in a water before you go on, and we've all seen it happen. That's fine. You got your stopwatch and you do it very professionally, and there's only and I'm all for that. Yeah. But I think sometimes, from my own personal point of view, it's an arts festival. Do it for fun, and if you want to have a biscuit or a lasagna with a cheese on the top one night. Do you know what I mean? Or a beer.
Massive biscuit or a lasagna, I love it.
Or a lasagna with a cheese on it. Don't. Well, I'm a vegetarian, but you can have Linda McCartney, of course. Mince.
Don't deny yourself.
Don't deny yourself. It's an art. Really enjoy it, I think. And if you're doing a solo show, yes, there's a lot of stress involved, but treat yourself and don't take it too serious. Yeah. Don't take it to heart, which we all do. I mean, we're all a sucker for reading something or whatever. I'm
carried away. We've come to the end, man.
Yeah, always.
But it's been great. I've really enjoyed this. It's great. There's been some really good stuff in there. Some stuff I might even use myself. Like the way you've locked the it away into the sub. You carry on working the back there. I like that. It's great.
Yeah, I think that can happen. That's a real thing. I think. I think that can really happen.
Because that comes from me when I come on stage. Sometimes the it'll be like, oh, what if this doesn't work out? Why do I need to talk to you right now in my head?
Oh, this person needs to be. That's very difficult. But that person needs to be not there when you perform. Exactly. When you have a great gig, you're nowhere. That's nowhere to be this person. Yeah. They're going. And now that person for me is really far back.
That's great.
I don't hear the voices. There's no one telling me I'm no good.
I've made friends with them, but now he needs to go away. That's what it is. So that's.
You don't need it.
But that's it.
You need to stop thinking. You know what I did as a younger person? I thought too much. And now I don't think.
Yeah, great. That's great.
I try not to think. And I just do. Yeah. Physically do. If you're nervous about the gig, you just walk to the microphone and you open your mouth and you say, good evening. Yeah. And you've started. I tell you what, if we're closing, this is... Perhaps I've kept this in mind, but when I worked with the Royal Shakespeare Company as an actor, and I was there for a year and a half, 2 years. I did Julius Caesar, King John, in 2003, 2002. The first night of King John was the man who played King John was Guy Henry. He was famous recently in Holby City, the main character. He could see I was nervous backstage. It's a big venue, the Swan Theatre, Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare Country, the Royal Shakespeare Company, my first season. He said to me, look, all you have to do, and he said this, shoulders down, breathe, and we're on. And that is perfect. You don't need to think, am I a good actor? Am I remember the lines? Shoulders down, breathe, and you walk on. Yeah. And you've started. And this is the difficulty for a lot of people, is starting. They can't get over themselves enough to start doing it. And as you know, once you've walked on your first gig, or whatever it is you want to do in life, to say hello to somebody, to asking the girl out, to starting a piece of art because you think you're no good at drawing, to singing in public for the first time, you just have to do it. There you go. You start. I'm pretending that now because I'm a very good singer and take classes. You have to just begin, and you realise it's not what you think. It's so easy. Yeah. It's easier. Comedy, anything. It's easier than you think and I think. It's not what you think.
I'm not trying to force it.
Yeah, it's easy. Life is easy if you stop thinking. Yeah.
Well, Andy, Storey, thank you for coming to the comedy.
And the phone didn't even charge in all that time.
And that was episode 55 with a very funny, a bit of a sage, Andy Storey. Go find him on Facebook, go follow him on Twitter, and go and see him live. You will not be disappointed. Episode 55, great one. Really enjoyed it. You can follow this podcast on Twitter. We're there at The Comedy Defect. You can follow me at Winter Phonander. You can also see all those jokes that I'm tearing out of that Guinness Encyclopedia, and they're up on Twitter under the handle at Guinness Jokes. I'm applied for Brighton, and I've got a space in Brighton, and I've got a space in Leicester, and I will be getting a space, hopefully, in Edinburgh. But there'll be loads of fringes that I'm going to be putting all the dates on my website that Danny Clives is hammering away at right now. If you like this podcast, you can also, why not donate? You go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast. You can donate as little as £1 or $1, or as much as you feel this podcast is worth, whatever you feel. Or if you don't want to donate, just leave us a nice, honest review on iTunes or Podbean, because it really helps, guys. It's pretty easy now. Just use the app. You can do it on your app. How many stars you want to give us, do what you like. Next episode is episode 56. He's an Australian. There's a couple of Australian podcasts coming up. His name is Jez Watts. He runs a gig in Perth called The Nasty Show, and it's the filthiest, dirtiest material you can possibly do. I met him in Edinburgh. He did his show, which was Sex, Lies and Videotape. He managed to fill that room every single date of the Fringe. It's episode 56 with the very funny Jez Watts, and that'll be the end of year's episode. Until the next episode in December, wrap up warm.